So next up, we have Cindy Bassett from Dallas Center Grimes.
All right, thanks, Alex. As Alex said, my name is Cindy Bassett, and currently I am an instructional coach and a social studies teacher. I do half and half at Dallas Center Grimes High School. Last year, before we had the grant, I was a tech integrationist for half of my day, so that's where some of that technology has come into play along with my social studies experience. I've taught social studies one way or another for 7 years now, so probably like many of you guys out there, I've taught many different of the social studies subjects in grades 8 through 12. What I want to do today is kind of keep the theme going throughout my presentation of how we can help students take advantage of technology to collaborate and communicate more. And I'll show you lots of different tools. I think I have about 9 or 10, as you can see on the sheet on your table. But like I said, my theme throughout is how you can use these tools to increase collaboration and communication amongst your students. First of all, a little bit of background about our district and what we use, and then what my students have access to at Dallas Center Grimes High School. All the students have an Apple MacBook Air, and this is our second year at the high school of going 1-to-1. A little further back than that, our 8th and 9th grade building got it a few years ago, so our students are very familiar with how to use these MacBook Airs. So that's a little bit of background knowledge for you. We are a Google Apps for Education school, and so I know myself as a teacher, tech integrationist, and instructional coach, I have taken advantage of that big time because there is so much with Google that you can find to apply to your classroom. So you'll see quite a bit of Google raveled in throughout my presentation. We, as myself and the other instructional coach at the high school this year, with our technology focus, we really challenged our teachers to use technology to increase opportunities for student communication and collaboration. There is that fear sometimes out there of, if we put these screens in front of students, if we allow our kids to do everything via a screen, we'll lose their ability to communicate and to socialize. And we've kind of gone with the belief that we're just increasing their opportunities. As far as why focusing on this communication and collaboration, DCG uses IPI. Any of you guys familiar with IPI as a data collection tool? I see a few nods. This is just a way to collect data on student engagement in the classrooms. Teachers collect the data, teachers work with the data, it just gives them that information. And so when our teachers in our building went through and collected that data over the past couple of years, then what they found is there wasn't a huge amount of student-to-student conversation compared with other activities. There's a lot of teacher up front talking. There were some high-level individual student activities, but we were missing that learning conversation that is so huge in education. And IPI-based research promotes that student conversation as leading to higher levels of learning. So from here, we said, all right, that's what we're going to focus on. That's the challenge we're going to give to our teachers, is let's increase this communication and collaboration. We also use, as far as technology, the Bright Bites Clarity Survey, and this is to collect information from teachers and students on what technology is used for. Well, again, here's where we saw a learning gap. We found that there was a low amount of teacher instruction and a low amount of student learning that included tech-based student conversations. So we have these laptops, we have this technology, we've been doing tech integration in PD, but we're missing this communication and collaboration. And so we decided, again, that this is what we were going to focus on with the additional goal of building 21st century skills for our students. So from here, I'll go ahead and start walking through my tools for you. And on your tables, Alex helped me set out pages or a page for everybody that just includes, it's just a way for you to gather information. I'm going to tell you the same thing as I tell my students or teachers at PD. Use it if you want, but I know some of us, as much as we love technology, it's sure nice to just have a piece of paper and pencil. If you want to take your own notes on information I give, ideas you think of, or you talk about at your table, and those things. I've got a couple spots to stop for questions as I go, or comments as I go, but feel free to stop me after each one or during each one with your own questions and comments, or to share some idea that you've used as well. The first one I want to start with is Blogger. This is a Google app, but I know there's also tons of other great tools out there for students to blog with. I'll just share what I've used Blogger for. And I chose to use Blogger because our students do all have their own Google account, so it was easy to access, and it was easy for the students to use their same login name and password for it. My example, so the example that I like the most that I've used in my own classroom is a current issues blog. When I taught current issues, every Monday when students would come in, then on Monday morning they would blog about news over the weekend. There were a few requirements for them that they had to include or ways they had to write their blog, but either way I kept it a really casual blog for them. I wanted to experience what that meant because blogging is so huge in our professional and personal worlds today. From there, what I would do to encourage that collaboration piece on Tuesdays, when students would walk in current issues class, they would then sit down and comment on 3 classmates' blogs, at least. Oh my gosh, it was so fun to read those. I mean, as teachers, you will have a blast reading these, not only the blogs, but to read what students will write to each other that they won't say. They won't say it in a classroom environment. I have pretty good relationships with my students and a pretty respectful classroom atmosphere, but it doesn't mean people always feel comfortable. We know that about students, but the conversations that they would have in these blog discussions were amazing to see. It was excellent practice for them, and it was really nice for me then to provide some feedback as we go. Every once in a while I would see a comment and I'd say, oh, you know, are you sure you want to throw that opinion out there for everybody to say? What if somebody feels that that's, you know, a little too personal or a little insulting? You know, it just gave me a chance to help them think about what they would put online for others to read. So that's something I really loved about doing these. Now, other suggestions, we have our family and consumer science teacher who did food blogs. Anybody could do journaling for a class and have your students journal. You could have students reflect, whether it be on the causes of war that you just finished teaching, whether it be on a leader's decision, whether it be on a new law that was passed. You could have your students reflect on there and then promote that as a way to discuss those. Now for each of these, I want to go through and I'll talk about some pros, but then I'll throw out some cons that I've noticed. And of course, there's more of each of these. One quick disclaimer though, before I get into my first pros and cons. Of all of these, a pro is that it's another learning tool for students, and you're just giving them that skill of trying new things out, trying new technology tools out. A con of all of them is it's another thing that you need to manage in the classroom. So as we all know, under each of these I could put for a con, you know, classroom management issue. I'm not going to worry about that. There's classroom management, you know, that's something you have to watch anyway, no matter what. But for pros for this one, I put authentic. This is real world right here. You find, well, I learn from blogs all the time. I'm sure many of you are the same. And so this is a real world thing. It increases their writing. Students enjoy writing this way, this casual way, more than the formal way maybe in their language arts class often. It promotes experience with that online presence. That's the example I gave about maybe talking to students about think before you write, think before you post those ideas online, and be careful about that. And then it gives that chance for peer feedback. The cons, you really have to watch students and help them cite information. And actually, I'll put up an example right here. This is one that a student posted a blog back in October, and so he wrote his article about Edward Snowden and everything, but he didn't cite this picture that he got. And so that's something that we went back and worked on. But when they put quotes in, when they put images in, if they put videos in, whatever that is, you need to go through that teaching of the importance of citing information. Now, to throw in a pro of that, what a great learning moment for teaching those, because you can kind of point out, hey, you wouldn't want somebody to take your blog and call it theirs, so this person doesn't want you to take their picture and call it yours. So if you can turn that con into a learning moment, that would help. Monitoring communication, you got to watch. I mean, you have to just kind of keep your eye on things because it is out there for students to see, and make sure that everything's respectful on there. So again, here's a couple images of my examples. So here you see the original post, and then here you see then on October 6th, on October 7th, then you see the students commenting on what was said. You could take it much further than I did. I didn't take it far enough where they did replies to each other, but you can go a long ways with that, and it's pretty darn user-friendly. All right, next one that I started using this school year is My Maps, and for My Maps, this has been a great one for my world geography class, but I've got some examples here of how you could use it in many other social studies classes as well. So my example is a student-created map, and I'm gonna actually show you just kind of some of the examples up here while I talk through this of what the toolbar looks like on My Maps. This is different from Google Maps. It gives students the opportunity to create and share their own map of whatever they want around the world, as small of a portion or as large of a portion as they want to. Groups collaborate on map making in my geography class, and what I really like about that is they'll do different layers of a map. They'll do everything from a layer of physical features, a layer of climates, a layer of cultural information. Other suggestions that you could have students do, if you teach a history class, you could have students sequence historic events on the map and explain the battle movements, or you could have them document the civil rights movement. If you teach, again, something like a civil rights, or a history class. The pros to this, you can have multiple collaborators. Multiple students can be working on different laptops on My Maps on one at a time. The tools, that are there, you can do a lot of different things with. As I kind of mentioned the idea of a layer here, you can add different layers to it. So I know I've seen a teacher use it for World War I. As they talk about the different phases of war, they did a different layer for each phase of war. And that helps students visualize that idea. Let's see, quick use or extended time for more information. You can keep it really simple by just having them label different points, and that's it. Or you could go a lot further, and you can export information from outside sources. As I said, you could do the different layers. You can go as far or as simple as you want to on this. The cons, multiple collaborators, you do have to refresh every so often for things to show up. It's not quite as smooth as something like Google Docs or Slides, I'll tell you that. That's with the delayed updates. And then, of course, the teaching time for certain features. If you're going to go further, expect to take some teaching time. If you're just going to do the quick markers, it doesn't take too much teaching time. Here's some of the tools up here that I mentioned as a pro, as far as you can measure distances, you can give directions, you can create grids. The sharing is pretty easy. It's pretty basic and looks a lot like other Google features that students will probably be familiar with. Today's Meet, for this one, I actually want to demonstrate it real quick, and so from there I'll also give you a chance to kind of post some questions if you'd like. So on that one, for today's Meet, you can either get to this by clicking on the questions here, or if you are on the notes page for today, then I have a little Today's Meet link on there that you can click on. And I have one open and started, and it says, I opened up this room. Today's Meet is like a classroom for discussion. And it's going to set up everything you'll see in a list view. And so I threw out this as the first point to start. What questions do you have? And so for you, if you want to, I'll just put an example up here so you can see. If you wanted to add something, then you could just put your name, and then you click Join, and then you can put your message. Let's say, what are the pros and cons of today's Meet? And then you click Say. That's one of the pros about it right there, is how easy that was. That it was pretty basic, and usually when I have students do it, I say you can only put your first name. So, you know, like you're probably used to doing with Kahoot or other technology tools, just tell them what they need to put for their name, and then just have them put up there, and then they put their message. So this is a place that what we can do now while I'm talking, go ahead and you can add your questions in as you think of them, or add a point you want me to expand on or something, and then I can come back to this and I can see what it is you want me to expand upon or clarify, or what question you want me to answer. And so let me go back here a little bit, and I'll talk about some of those pros and cons and examples. Now, what I've used it for, one of my favorite activities I've used it for in a world geography class that I taught. This year I did immigrant interviews where immigrants from all over the world had to be interviewed by an immigration board in the United States, and they had to basically argue for themselves of why they should get to come to the United States, what problems they're facing abroad, et cetera, et cetera. And so at the same time, there could only be a small group of students who was the immigrant board. There could only be one immigrant at a time. And so then what do you do with the rest of the class? And we have activities like this quite a bit in social studies, especially with simulations. Here's your answer. It was awesome for this. So what the rest of the class did is they sat there and they had a discussion on today's meet, and they had to talk about on there why the immigrant board should or should not allow this particular immigrant in. They had to compare this immigrant that was talking to, say, the last immigrant that was talking, and they had to go back and forth on that discussion as far as why they should or should not let them in. It was a very powerful tool for those students who don't like to say a whole lot in front of the rest of the class, but had a lot of academic knowledge and information to share online where they were more comfortable. So that was a really neat way that I found students using it. Video comments, I've known teachers talk about using this when they're showing either a short or a long clip and have an online discussion while the video is going. And then I showed you my example with questions. You could easily do this just to get as a different way for students to ask questions on a topic. Say during lecture notes, for example, if you're doing a quick lecture and you want students to write down their questions as you go, here's an answer right here. Out of class question and answer time, I've read this as being used for students where the teacher opens up the today's meet room at, say, an hour during the evening, and if students have questions, they put them all on there then. The teacher checks them when they want to, and then comes back to class and knows what questions the students have. Or say today, as we all have substitute teachers in our classroom, you could set up a today's meet room, and one of the great things about it is you can choose how long it's open. The one I opened up, I think for today, I think I kept it open for a day. I could have gone an hour, 2 hours. I could have gone a week. So you can set up how long it's open. Students can ask questions, and then you can go take a look at them when you want to. The pros of this are, as you could see, the quick setup and the student access. They don't have to sign up. You can just, as you did, click on the link and go right in. So wherever you have a place to put that link, and then they're right in. Students can actually create their own accounts. I've never done this just because I haven't had the need to, but I've read a lot of the good things about having students create their own accounts, and that way you as a teacher can monitor that, and they as a student can monitor what they've done and added to today's meet over time. It involves students who don't like to speak aloud, and it gets multiple different questions out there. I can ask as many questions as I want and keep that discussion going. Now the cons, there's definitely some cons to this one. Limited comment control without subscribing for $5 a month. So they have a small fee if you want to upgrade. Well, without doing that upgrade, you lose some of your classroom management features. This one does make me a little nervous for the fact that I know I have to really get to that point in the semester when I trust my students and I'm ready for them to be able to comment on here, because I can't just delete comments like you can say on some other ones. I'll show you Padlet in a little bit, and you can delete comments in there. I can end the room, I can close the room, but I can't delete those comments. I can't pause the room. If you do the $5 a month, you can pause the room, you can open and close the room, you can go back and see transcripts even after you've closed the room. This one, once I close the room, that's it. I can't go back and see the transcript. So like getting ready for today, I was kind of disappointed. Oh, I can't go back up and pull up my transcript from some of these today's meets that I've done and show this, because you don't have those without that subscription fee. And then the other small con, this was a smaller one, but something to think about as far as how you want your information portrayed. This is only in the list view. So you kind of have to scroll up and down as the comments get longer, you scroll up and down. So that's very small, but when you're thinking of what you want to use it for, consider that. This is an example of the one we did. Oh, we were talking about lobotomies the other day in psychology. That's a topic that students love to comment and react to. We watched a short video on it, and then during the video I posted a couple questions, and so here's one of them, and then this was their responses to the question. So you can see what it ends up looking like, and I know you're probably also seeing on there as well. All right, next one, Google Classroom. With Google Classroom, there's tons of different tools you can use. I'm just going to point out one that Google Classroom added this at the beginning of this school year, and we've used it quite a bit and really enjoyed it for the communication and collaboration piece. For Google Classroom, my example is use the Ask feature for political cartoon analysis. You can use the Ask feature for anything. My example is for political cartoon analysis. I'm going to just show you this one right away. So here's what it ends up looking like. I put a question up here. It says, follow the link below to view the political cartoon. The doctor is saying, fit for active service. What is the author's point? Some of you who are history teachers might remember that political cartoon from Germany where it has like a skeleton that the doctor's checking out, and he says, yep, fit for active service. And so we looked at that one in a class I co-taught over World War II. And so then we just talked about, well, what was the author's point? What was he trying to get across? And so you can see on here, this was right at the beginning when only 2 students were done. So that's a nice thing about Google Classroom. It tells you how many are done, it tells you how many are not done. So you can see those as they go. And this also shows up in a list view. So that's how Google Classroom works. Google Classroom is built for teachers, so it definitely gives you a lot of options as far as getting rid of answers or responses if you want, closing out the question if you want, opening it back up if you want to. The pros to this, accountability, is awesome because you have the students sign in so you know who has answered and who hasn't. It's also, this I know we have teachers use as an exit ticket or sometimes a bell ringer. It's fabulous for that because it's so quick. And think of as a teacher checking those. All I have to do to check these to see who's finished it and not is click here, and then I scan down and look at the answers. So it's very, very fast as far as you as a teacher and the time you have to spend checking it. The teacher-student communication is excellent all around Google Classroom, and it allows you to put links, images, and videos on. The cons here, delayed updates, and what I mean by that is if let's say you put a question up and a student is gone and you need them to answer it sometime during a 24-hour period or even a week period, you have to go back and check. You don't get alerts if they answered it late or anything. That's one thing at Google Classroom I hope they change soon, is finding a way to give you as a teacher alerts to when students answer things or when students turn in an assignment. It's just not something they have quite yet. All right. Google Slides, this is one that has been around a little longer, so we're probably a little more familiar with, but let me just give you some of those examples for this one. With Google Slides, my examples, a vocabulary slideshow, I had students, I assigned partners a vocabulary term, and then they had to build a Google slide all about that vocabulary term. What's an authentic example? How is it used in this unit? How is it used in your life? What's the actual textbook definition? All those things. Have them collaborate on that. And then as soon as it's on the Google slide, that's shared with everybody, and everybody automatically has a study tool. One thing I really like also with doing something like having the students create a slideshow and share it with each other, it is fabulous accountability. When they know the rest of the class is going to see their work, they really want to put something good out there. They want more quality work. You know, if you see their work, they know that you know how their academic abilities and things like that. But when their class, when their peers are going to see their work, they step it up a little bit. That's a really neat way of having accountability for them. Collaborative projects, it's huge on because it's so smooth for them to collaborate on. Other suggestions, shared lecture notes. I know if I do a short lecture during class, I have it on, I usually do it on Google Slides just because I always share it. It's just easy. That way students have the notes and they have what they need, and if they don't want to sit and write, they can follow along that way. If they missed class, they can go back and look. If they're studying for the assessment, they can go back and look. It's always there. It takes away any of those, what if I was gone? I can't keep up. I don't like to write notes, things like that. It's always there. So I really like it for shared lecture notes because, again, then they can have it. The pros, it's user-friendly, very user-friendly, very, very easy for students to catch on with this. Timely, meaning that they can see each other editing. It's very much quick as far as live goes. Post-secondary environments, this is a great one to show students because they should and will most likely use something like slides in college, in the work environment, wherever else after high school. They will continue to use something like this as far as a presentation tool. It's versatile. You can use it for a ton of different things. Slides has in it now so many different templates and multiple users and live editing, of course. As far as the cons, it is overused, and it sometimes does, for students, I feel I need to push them further than Google Slides at this point. A lot of times now when I'm having them do something collaborative, I will sometimes say, okay, don't use Google Slides. Go somewhere else. Use something different, because they attach themselves to it and they use it for everything. I don't know if any of you guys are at this point. Oh my gosh, they will use Google Slides for everything. They want to put everything on Google Slide because it's easy. And so sometimes they do need that extra challenge with some other tool. So hopefully I can give you an example or two for that. All right, let me switch a little bit here and give you a break of listening to me on those and take a look at today's meet and see if I can answer any of these. Let's see. So, okay. Pros, give voice to the voiceless. Cons, open mic for all students. I like that. Open mic for all students. It can lead to goofiness. Definitely. And I've had that, and that's one of those things with today's meet. You have to think of what is your class ready for that. You can also print the transcripts for grading or checking for participation. That's an awesome idea when you can just print them right then. Because when you're in the room, when you have it open, even if you don't pay the $5 subscription fee, you can print the transcription then. So before you close the room, you can print it. That's a great idea. Great for fish bowls and debates. Awesome. I know our debate teacher has used this for while the debates are going on, then the students are discussing. So that's a perfect example. All right. I'm going to move on to a few more. I'm about halfway through or so. Does anybody have any questions you want me to pause and clarify before we move on? Okay. The next one, as long as I'm on Google Docs, and this is another one we're really familiar with, obviously, but I'm going to give you a few examples of how to use it for student communication and collaboration. My example, the easy one to give, is for teacher feedback. Remember how easy this is to use for teacher feedback. And you can see here, I'll put up, this is an example of a student paper and then my comments back to them so that they can make some changes if they wanted to before turning it in for grading. So this is one, it's just a quick, easy way that you can get feedback right away to student. That eliminates that turnaround time of maybe having the hard copy paper. Now, hard copy paper is really nice just for writing or circling things on, of course. But this one, it really creates quick turnaround if you think about using this for teacher feedback. Another thing, shared student notes. One of my favorite times with Google Documents and one of my classes last year of like 17 and 18-year-old boys who were just really, really, really ready to graduate in this World War II and Civil War class that I had. They were really fun, but man, they were ready to graduate. We were reading excerpts of Gods and Generals for different parts in our Civil War unit. And they really would have a tough time when we would get to say the quizzes or the assessments over some of these excerpts. Well, that's because I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with 17 and 18-year-old boys, but they don't want to read. They did not want to read the novel. And that was a great learning experience for me. But one of the best things that they did is they started a Google Doc of notes for every single excerpt. So they had it, and I'm sure some people looked at that like, so they were giving each other answers. Are you kidding? I'm not worried about that. They are having an online discussion about this material. It was amazing. Their essay responses to the quizzes got so much better. They were so much more in depth. You could tell that they had discussed this on their own and then come for this summative assessment and discussed it at a deeper level. They were understanding and they were analyzing the information. So I have continued to kind of steal their idea and push other students to do something like that and take advantage. Anytime you see students having those academic conversations, it's just so much fun. Another one, collaborative essay writing. I know one of our AP social studies teachers, what he does when he's teaching DBQs is at first he puts students in different groups and he has them work through the process of how to write a DBQ together so that they can really fine-tune that before they're writing it individually. And Google Docs is a great way to do this because they can do some peer review and peer editing and work on it together from different places. So that's been a really powerful one. This one, it includes very easily the ability to put images and links, as we know, and sharing privileges are awesome, just the different layers of sharing privileges that are out there. The cons, student organization. I don't know how many times I've had a student say, I don't know where I put those notes. I don't know where I put that layer. It's amazing how even when we go to technology and we have all these awesome folder possibilities and everything, there's still the idea of losing things. Or I don't know how many of you guys are in schools where you have Google accounts for the students, but my students, sometimes I just say, have you looked on your personal Google account? Because sometimes it's just on their personal Google account. So it's amazing how these things can still disappear, but not as much as if it's a paper copy, at least in my experience. And then the sharing privileges, be careful on that as far as who they're sharing it with, how public it is or isn't, and just help them to consider those different options that are out there so that you're playing it safe. All right, Padlet, and this is another one that I'm going to demonstrate as well. So first of all, a little bit of what Padlet is. This one is another way to get student discussion out there online. And my example, student input and sharing of opinions, which we know is hard to do vocally for them, but this is a good way to put it out there for students who don't want to say it. Other suggestions for this, you can use it as a student discussion board and an idea board. I've used it before. We've had students do a project or write an essay for an idea board, so then they can all share ideas, and when they go to actually produce, they can go further. And so with this one, let me show you, there we go. This one, you can see the link here at the bottom, or if you're on the Google Doc, you can go ahead and go to just click on the Padlet link there. And so I'll show you how this works. And if you already know, go ahead and you can go ahead and start posting. So my question that I already had created up here, have or will you use any of these tools in the classroom? And so when a student wants to post, or when you want to post, it gives you the option, as you can see, to put a title and to write something. Just a piece of advice or a suggestion that I do, I always have the students put their name as the title. Done. Then their name is out there before they put anything else, and I use the same rule, just your first name. So figure out whatever works for your classroom and then have them follow that every single time so you're consistent and they know what to expect. And so for my title, I'll put my name, and then as far as how will I use it, let's see, I'll use classroom ask to start student discussion on theoretical views in psych class. So that's my idea, and then if you click off it, the lines kind of disappear. And one thing about this one, when you want to change it, here's your little gear setting for modify this Padlet. You have lots of neat ways. The look, the appearance of this one is nice. We like things, it's amazing how we are drawn to things that look creative and that are colorful or bright and have lots of different examples. And here's one of the ways that I do like Padlet a little better than today's Meet, is that it has these different options here as far as the look. And so you see I have my title and my description. And you've got all these different little icons. Now, one thing I really like, you can share, export it really easily. The layout, right now it's a grid, so that mine will kind of line up in columns. You can do a stream. You can have it be scattered. So there's different ways you can have that set up. And this one, you can post this link anywhere, and it's pretty quick and easy to open it up, as you can see. All right, so moving on with this one, it's easy for teacher and student use, pretty easy and quick to set up. I've shown multiple teachers how to do this, and they've latched on. No matter how much or little they like to use technology, they don't seem to mind Padlet too much. It's free to manage. You can do a lot of management things without paying a thing. I don't pay a thing. I use it a lot. It's free to manage the student posts. You can, I should show you the delete. Maybe at the end, if we have time, I'll go back to it and show you. That's a really nice trick as far as management goes. If you want to delete, if you see something you don't like, or if you're kind of saying, hey, let's narrow it down to some really big ideas or something. As soon as you hover over the post, a little trash can comes up and you can delete it. So that's huge. There's a lot of great privacy options. I love this. You can actually make this so that you have to have a password to get in, and teachers will oftentimes feel better then, especially if they're posting it in a public place like their Symbaloo that everybody sees, or in their Google Calendar that a lot of parents see, and maybe they just don't want all of this on there with student posts out there. That's something to think about, is who's going to see this. Padlet gives you excellent options as far as keeping things private and being careful about what information, what names and ideas you're putting out there. So I would encourage you to look at having the students just sign in with a password. That's pretty easy as well. And then, like I talked about, the design elements. The cons, there's only one question at the time. Today's Meet beats it out for that, because today's Meet has that list view, and I can keep asking new questions. I do that often. I usually ask multiple questions on today's Meet, and that's a way to keep that discussion going. With Padlet, you can keep putting up different questions, but it gets a little messy, and so you might want to almost do a new Padlet. So with this one, it seems to work better, at least for me, with one question at a time. What are you thinking?
One thing, you can do your own background.
Okay.
You have a customized thing, and in there type different questions.
Oh,
columns.
cool.
So, if you do a Google slide, it's the right aspect ratio.
Okay.
Create it on Google Slide and then pull it in through there.
Okay, and there's an idea you should write down, because that is awesome. That's a great idea that I'm going to use and share. I'm really glad. Yeah, that's an excellent one. And the Google slide is just perfect for it, huh? That's excellent. So that's a nice one to just take out that con. And then I don't, for this one, I didn't have a lot of other cons, just because for what you want out of it as a student discussion board, it's pretty simple. All right, and then there's an example. Let's see, this one. So still in psychology class, I did, why is blank the most significant psychologist? And then they put their name, and then you can see she put Sigmund Freud, and then she put why. And so then you can see my example of how they put different ideas and opinions out there that maybe they wouldn't otherwise. And then the next one I'm going to buzz through is social media. Now for this one, I'm just going to touch on a few ways that I've used social media. There's tons out there tons of ways you can use it, and I'll just show you a couple of examples. So my example, share content-related communication. One thing that this one stresses is that communication isn't just talking. It isn't just what you put out there. It's also what you learn and what you listen to and what you find out that's out there. And so that's what this one kind of focuses on, at least the way I did it. So I have my students on Wednesdays in psychology class. What they do is I give them either a really specific or kind of a broad topic that's related to our current unit, and then they have to go find a tweet or an image or a post or something out there on social media that is related, and then they have to explain the relationship. And so that's one that we do every Wednesday, and it just helps them see how what's in our class is out in the real world and how people talk about that in the real world. And so for this one, for other suggestions, other things that I've seen a lot of teachers use and really like is TweetBeam, and that one's really fun. You can set up TweetBeam to where every time a student tweets out something with a certain hashtag, then it collects it all in one place, and it puts up their tweets and shows them all at once, or whatever images they post with it, it puts them all at once. So that one's really fun. They can post content-related material. A Pinterest board, our art teacher uses Pinterest board. I've seen social studies teachers use those on certain topics and build Pinterest boards. You can share media on YouTube with this one, and that's something that is also a really authentic activity for the students to learn how to do. That can help them a lot. The pros, bring teen culture and education together. Help them kind of get into their world a little bit, bring their world into the classroom, relate to them a little bit. This is their comfort level for many students as far as social media goes. And so they are more apt to be open to our ideas if you kind of step into their comfort level. And a huge way of practicing digital citizenship. I don't know about you guys, but this is a constant conversation in our school, is how we work on digital citizenship. And if we give them these opportunities in the classroom, then we are teaching them as we are going. And that's definitely something that's our job as teachers and staff members. The cons, that increase with risk with inappropriate material. You have to be really careful about monitoring this. What are they seeing? What are they talking about? What are they putting out there? It's just an increased risk. And so this is something that you really, again, have to have that relationship with your students and that monitoring level. How are you going to make sure that you're keeping things in your classroom appropriate for those students? Here's an example of when we've done our psychology bell ringers that, like I said, are on social media. When I give them kind of a topic they have to put on. So this one was about gender, when we were talking about gender stereotypes, and so then they had to go find a gender stereotype. And these up here are just the images that they found, and then for me, then they had to explain that gender stereotype that was either being proved or disproven by these pictures. So you can see they pointed out the one was being, that gender stereotype was being proven. This was a girl in a costume and making a comment about going to school in that costume, and so that one was disproving the gender stereotype. And so that spurred on good conversation and gave them the opportunity to see gender stereotypes in the media. Prezi is one that is a good collaboration tool, and this one, a lot of people use Prezi but don't know that actually if you share it and you share editing, then it's very easy to go ahead and work on it together. So a lot of people do this on slides, not realizing that they can also do it on Prezi. And for this one, there's a how-to video in my slideshow that I'm not going to take the time to show, but it can do a much better job of explaining and showing than I can. So if this is something you're interested in using, take a look at that link. The link's in there and everything, because it's pretty easy as far as how to do it, and this will show you in just a few minutes. Other suggestions, oh, I know, my student-to-student sharing one. So this one, when my students in small groups were sharing their presentations on global issues, then what they did is they would share the Prezi with others, and then they would remotely show their Prezi. So it was a big group of students, and so instead of one of them just being on their little laptop, then to get everybody involved and engaged, but allow them to see it, one person, a student, could sit and present remotely. Prezi gives you that option to present remotely. And so as, let's say, Nick was doing this, he was sitting there presenting remotely as the other students were following along, and they could see it right on their laptops, and they feel a whole lot more engaged than they do if Nick is presenting in front of the class with all of them sitting there in a desk like they did every other period that day. So that's the nice thing about Prezi and its presenting remotely abilities. Teacher to student sharing, they can share it with you really easily, and vice versa. The pros, it's a new challenge for students. So when I said Google Slides sometimes is too easy, here's your step up. There's more zones to work on. There's a lot more figure it out things. It's a lot better challenge for students. It's very doable, but they have to work a little more at it the first few times. Post-secondary environments, here's another example. They will use this most likely in some way, shape, or form. The design elements, it's got a lot of opportunities there for students to go places. It gives you the opportunities for multiple editors, up to 10 different editors, which is plenty. Real-time editing, you can see a picture of where the other person is at while you're over here. So that's one thing I really like about it. And then I talked about the remote presentations. The cons, complex features mean more learning time. So the first time students use it, expect for them to have a lot of questions, expect to plan for that, whether they help each other, whether you're there, whether you have tech integrationists or somebody in there helping. All right, and then here's just an example of what it looks like when somebody else is on there and I'm working. I can see exactly where they are and what they're doing. So that's kind of a neat feature. And here's my video. All right, additional tools. I just have a couple slides of these, and these are things that other teachers use, and I haven't, but I've seen them have a lot of success with. Our composition teacher has students write and put work out on the wiki, and then other students comment on it for peer feedback. And a Moodle, we have an AP biology teacher who uses a Moodle for a discussion board. Anybody could use that for a discussion board. That is something that your district would probably need a license for, though. Additional tools, and then a last couple. Quizlet, I use Quizlet a lot for collaboration and communication. We know it's fantastic as a review tool individually for a teacher to create it. Have students create the Quizlets and then share them with each other, and have them created in partners and then share it with others. They can do this. It's again that idea of whoever's doing the talking or the creating, they're learning. So have students do it. And then iMovie, students collaborate to produce content-related media. It can be tough for them, but they can sure run with it and do a lot of fun, creative, higher-order activities. Okay, questions?
We do have one question from Zoom.
Okay.
This question was, if all social media sites are unblocked at your school?
Yes, that's a fabulous question. They are. We, up until last year, Facebook was blocked, but they went ahead and took that off, and And so our school definitely keeps things pretty open. I'll keep an eye on the Padlet in today's meet and get back to people however you want, but let me know how I can help you implement these. I would love to, and any other questions you have, just let me know. You've got my email, my Twitter, any information. Let me know how I can help you. Thanks.